Good evening. I'm your host, Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution podcast. If you are new to the channel, thank you so much for taking the time to check us out. If you are a returning listener, subscriber, or one of our very valued patrons, so glad to have you back. I want to thank all the guests and all the good people that took time out of their busy schedules to check out the week of shows here on TIR. We kicked off the week with a return to the Monday Music Movie Night, where we watched the 1984 cult classic Streets of Fire. Now, if you missed out, we do have it up for our patrons with all of the pre and post viewing discussions. And these movie night talks have been getting pretty deep and interesting. Tuesday, I spoke with journalist Ryan Zagraff, and we discussed the quiet exit of the once cultural giant MTV. We then proceeded to play VJs in the Champagne Room, where I compiled a fun playlist of videos from MTV's pre-reality show era. Wednesday, Mac and I, to the chagrin of the viewing audience, talked sports for over an hour before the ridiculousness ensued. Then at 5 a.m. my time on Thursday, I spoke with longtime musician Eugene Robinson of Oxbow about the real economics of attempting to make music your career. All these shows are up now, so make sure to check them out when you're done here. At TIR, we pride ourselves by not churning out disposable content. We try to create programming that is thoughtful, challenging, political, cultural, historical, irreverent, and at times downright chaotic in what we hope is the best way possible. We cover the stories and ideas that matter, not always the ones that trend. We bring you conversations rooted in analysis, solidarity, and intellectual curiosity. And we do it without selling out to the algorithm and without trying to become another outrage factory. But none of this happens without you, the patrons, the supporters, the people who tune in, share, argue, question, and help keep this show alive. It is your contributions, large and small, that make TIR possible. So if you enjoy what we do here on TIR, then consider becoming a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber. For as little as $3 a month or a one-time payment of $30 for the year, you can have access to these movie nights, champagne rooms, crisis papers, our new weekly newsletter, and you get the satisfaction of knowing that your small donation is a major part of keeping TIR on the air. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get to what you guys came here for in the first place. Why can't the kids read? Last night, I was at an event in Los Angeles for Catherine Liu, one of those rare gatherings where camera phones were actually banned. Honestly, it was refreshing. No one trying to record, no one pretending to be an influencer, just people in a space talking and enjoying each other's company. In the middle of that, my 7-year-old son called me. And if you have kids, you know you always answer that call. His homework assignments are unpredictable mini adventures. And this one was no different. His mom off camera yells at me that I have to purposely misspell words. He instructs me to spell words like growth and fold so he can correct me. I up the ante by asking him to use the words in a sentence, and he actually enjoys this extra step of thought. And the truth is, my son is quite lucky when it comes to his education. He's surrounded by adults who read, who write, who know how to support him. A mom with a master's, a dad who writes for a living, grandparents with post-secondary education, and an adult sister who encourages him to read for fun. But what about the millions of kids who don't have that? What about the children of migrants, the children of overworked parents, the kids whose families don't have the education or the English proficiency to fill in the gaps left by the school system? We saw this recently with the case of Alicia Ortiz, a Connecticut student with learning disabilities who graduated with honors from her high school and got into the University of Connecticut. And only then did people discover she never really learned how to read. She relied on speech-to-text tools and AI writing aids her entire school career. Now she's suing the district for denying her the chance to learn a basic skill. And the thing is, Alicia is not much of an outlier as people want to believe. According to MIT researchers, only 33% of fourth graders are proficient readers, barely up from the 29% in 1992. Despite new literacy screening laws, most teachers administering these tests receive less than 3 hours of training. Some receive no training at all. Many screenings happen in hallways with interruptions, noise, and technical glitches. Teachers say they aren't trained to evaluate English language learners properly. You try to say that 5 times fast. Schools lack processes for interventions. And in low income districts, conditions are even worse. And what's the solution being pushed? Not more training, not more teachers, not more funding, not smaller classes, not comprehensive support for families. The solution being marketed now by both ed tech companies and increasingly by policymakers is AI. MIT's researchers are already developing an AI platform designed to individualize reading instruction. Private companies are selling AI teachers, AI tutors, and teacher replacing adaptive learning systems. And here's the political reality. For decades, the project of privatizing public education has been pursued through charter schools and attacks on teacher unions. But charters have plateaued. Teachers' unions, despite constant assault, still exist. AI learning models, however, promise something privatizers have dreamed for decades: a cheap, scalable, teacherless educational future. The perfect neoliberal answer to a crisis they helped create. So, tonight, to help us understand whether AI is actually helping or simply opening the door to the next phase of privatization, we're joined by longtime educator, writer, and of course, my very good friend, Derick Varn.
Hi. Welcome to my day job.
I thought you were going to say your nightmare. I guess it's a little bit of both.
No, I mean, it's a little bit of both, because I am, I'm not going to tell you where for obvious reasons, although it's not hard to figure out. I am a online and in-person educator. I am a department head, and I have specialties in English language development, which is what we used to call ESL, so English as a second language. We don't call it that anymore. We don't know how many languages these kids do or don't speak a lot of the time. It's sort of, except the old politically correct term was stupid, kind of like African Americans was like a dumb politically correct answer, and we moved past it. English as a second language assumes that it's their second language, and sometimes they're not literate in any language, and they don't speak English, which is real fun. And two, sometimes they speak 2 or 3 languages at home before they even get to English. I am also, on top of that, a normal English teacher. I teach concurrent enrollment, AP. I've taught IB, that's International Baccalaureate, and I've taught every grade from 6th grade to graduate school. So I really am truly a specialist on this. This is not like me and my Mark stuff where I've done it on the side for 20 years. I have, we could talk about the neoliberalization of it. It's staggering. And by staggering, I can give you an example. There is a conference that I went to, and again, I'm not going to name it, but it's an ed tech conference. It's not even a digital learning conference. It's an international educational technology conference. The registration for that conference was $800 a teacher, $1,200 for administrators. And all it was one research room and then an entire stadium complex center full of ads. That's all was there. And there were educators from as far away as New Zealand there. I don't know why the Newfies always find me, but they always seem to. But seriously, there were educators from all over the world there. The literacy rates in the United States, the worst illiteracy rate is in, actually, it's not the worst school system, interestingly enough. It doesn't have the lowest test scores, but the state with the The state with the highest levels of illiteracy is, what do you think?
Texas.
It's California.
Damn it.
It's California. It's California. And then, however, now I say that because it is not the state with like the lowest school system or lowest test scores. What that means is there's just more students there who get through the system, usually because they don't speak English at home, who cannot read. Now, I'm going to say some things, though, that are going to complicate this as a narrative about just education, because one of the things that I study also is how this is happening in other countries. And while the U.S. education system leaves a lot less to be desired, we're actually not the worst in the OECD, although we're pretty close. We're about 13 or 14, depending on the year, down. We are also not the country that's seen the furthest fall in literacy rates. So this is not just your ability to read, but what level do you read? That's actually been countries that were higher up, like the Republic of Korea. So this is an international phenomenon that cannot be solely explained by pedagogy. And for those of you who don't know that stupid word, that just means how we teach. But pedagogy has changed dramatically. I agree with you that the answers have increasingly been AI. Schools are adopting AI in hopes that they can not hire teachers. However, there are other things that might be driving some of this, because there's also just in general a massive teacher shortage and a declining population of students to go to school. So those three things together mean that they don't want to invest in teachers because they don't think they're going to need them for very long anyway. And I don't just mean that from the AI perspective. You are right to point out that the only profitable parts of education, although you didn't say this, but I just happen to know it, are the parts that are rent-seeking, and that's the parts that don't involve labor. So that's textbooks, computer programs, etc. Initially sold as cost-saving mechanisms, a lot of digitalizations have actually ended up being a lot more expensive. For example, if I get you a book on a program called Sora, I'm going to be paying between $12 and $25 per license per student per year. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you buy textbooks, which are normally $80 to $120 a year, I mean, not per year, per student, they usually last 10 to 15 years. So do the math on that. The rent seeking is astronomical, but the majority of most school districts still pay about 90 to 93% of their budget to staff, faculty, and administration. The issue with staff, faculty, and administration is increasingly administration is where most of the money's gone, and that has doubled the cost of education per student per year. And I say that because I want people to understand this is not actually a money problem. This is an allocation problem and a social problem. Okay. So let's talk about my evidence for literacy declines. We've always known that there have been students who've been able to finagle their way through school without reading.
Yes.
You can go back and watch, I don't know, My So-Called Life, Steve Jordan's Jordan's arc in 1992 about a very young, very punchable what's his face, making it all the way through high school and not being able to read. The difference is now the likelihood of that increasing has gone up dramatically. The average reading ability for an American adult of any age right now is about 7th grade, 7th or 8th grade. Those grades are imprecise, but what that basically means is they have the ability to read most single syllable words, sentences that have no more than two or three clauses. So complex sentences, but not super complex sentences, and they can draw simple inferences.
Okay.
However, the median reading ability of the American adult is 5th grade.
Yikes.
What that means is they can read simple sentences with very few clauses and be able to follow it without being confused. Can use most mono or duosyllabic words, so that's 1 or 2 syllables, and cannot draw inferences at all. That is not a reflection of their intelligence. It has nothing to do with their intelligence. It has to do with how they're using the processing speed. In addition, reading requires high levels of executive function, and we measure executive function in time because attention is one of the major ways you can tell executive function. What executive function is your ability to pay attention, delay gratification, and strategically divide your attention so you can keep it going. And when it first began studied in the 1950s, the average executive function time block that someone needed was roughly a half an hour with a couple of 15-minute breaks. Today, it's about 2 minutes.
Do you think social media is a big reason why?
It's one of the main reasons why. But it's not just social media. It is blue light. It is an increasingly there's an increasingly sense where you have large chunks of time that multiple things eat up your attention, and nobody is actually good at multitasking for long periods of time. So what does this mean for our kids today? It means, one, this isn't their fault, but two, we have a paradox right now, and I mentioned it on the show before. We have the highest graduation rates we've seen in American history. More students graduate high school than ever before. And that lawsuit, I'm actually glad someone's finally suing, although I don't know how well it's going to do. Because I have thought for a long time that what we've been doing is pushing kids off so that they pay now for the same skills in remedial college classes that they would have gotten their last 3 years of high school. We have done this because after No Child Left Behind failed and was frozen, and we could talk about why it failed. It did actually lead to some closing of gaps between different demographics of students. So to say it failed is somewhat controversial, but no school could meet its goals because its goals were actually set to eventually become impossible. I believe on purpose, as a backdoor way to get the feds out of state education, as opposed to today where there's no backdoor excuse. Because the goal, I think, was supposed to be by 2014 was to have 100% yearly growth. So 100% people not meeting standards, but growing from standards every year. That's not possible. But that was the NCB, the No Child Left Behind's ultimate goal, was 100% yearly growth and all schools at like 95% standards. That's where it got its name from. That's not if you know anything about population distributions, that's not possible. Right? Because even if you got everyone to standard, they also have to grow. There was no way that was going to happen. Obama froze it, but what they replaced it with was basically state discretion. And a lot of states who had imposed relatively rigorous standards in the 80s and 90s just said, nah. All right. Because it became harder to get gains. And we had taken most of what, like, middle school went from being mostly electives with yes, we do teach the core, but basically we're focused in on reading and writing, and we send you to a social studies class and a science class because we have to, but if there's nothing, we don't really expect anything important to go on, and we send you to electives to figure out what you might like in high school. That's what middle school was in the 80s and the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
During the aughts, middle school became, we got to get you ready for these high school tests, because in the middle school, the growth benches were set a lot lower than they were in the high school. But the pressure on the middle school to send people up to the high school who could pass the 9th and 10th grade test was very high. So they dropped most of the electives. It was also an excuse to get rid of whole categories of teachers, like art teachers, music teachers, shop teachers, which are barely exist now, at least particularly before high school, automotive teachers. So middle school became an even more of a slog than it is. And by the way, even when middle school was good, we all know it's terrible. Like, I basically think that middle school should have a reading class, a writing class, and you should run in a circle till you get tired for 4 hours. But like, you know, like basic life skills, hang out with each other. Let's make sure you don't cry, go run until you're exhausted, and read a book and like do some math. That's it. But I don't get to make the curriculum. Other things happened too. So when we started standardizing the curriculums, we started narrowing the ranges of which students had to show proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good, but what you have is compounding effects. This is actually even worse in math than it is in English. The United States keeps on adding more and more math standards almost at every state level, and students can do even basic math less and less well. If you think about what you're doing, though, that makes perfect sense. You are asking kids to do more before they've mastered the prior skill sets. Also, since the 1980s, there's been tons of fads that have gone through education. Some of them technologies, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them have been like multiple learning styles. There's no such thing. They've been debunked since the middle 90s. We still have teachers doing them. Multiple intelligence, which there is kind of evidence for such things, but we don't really know how to measure them. And the way we have tried to standardize measurement in things like objective tests as opposed to demonstrative tests to get rid of bias have been a problem. We have gotten rid of the objective test, which means now bias is actually worse. And I know this is unpopular, but grades have been proven over and over again to be more, they're not just racist, they're also like attractiveness, zip codist, classist, not just, I don't normally like the word classist because it's confusing, but here I literally mean like there's a bias against working class people. There's a bias against people who are ugly. There is no, when blinded, those differences often go away. But the primary thing which we've replaced standardized tests with have been teacher assessed grades. And the teachers are punished if their failure rates are basically existent at all, but definitely if they even approach what was traditionally considered a bell curve. So you've seen, for example, I know at least 5 schools in my state that are top tier schools, but they have 85% A's in their Math 2 classes, but only 40% proficiency. Now, how the hell does that work?
It doesn't.
So, to get back to literacy, the lowest performing adults are actually where you've seen the biggest drop, but there have been some things that we're doing where people are throwing spaghetti against the wall on literacy. I have a book. I'm going to hold it up so people can see it. I'm going to say it so people who listen to this can hear it. This is Visible Learning, the sequel, a synthesis of over 2,100 meta-analysis related to achievement. I'm going to tell you some things that are pretty shocking. Group work shows some, if structured well, learning gains. But direct instruction, the thing that people have been told forever is not great, shows the most learning gains. None of them, by the way, are super high. Most of the gains you get from learning are not stuff that happens in the classroom. But what you can control is good direct instruction, good relationships with teachers, that does matter, but not peer relationships. If the students view the teacher as a peer, it does not help. Technology has no effect, but social media has a negative effect, as does extended exposure to blue screens, which is why I'm very ambivalent about my day job. I could go through differentiation has almost no effect. Tracking has some positive effect, but we don't want to admit it, and it's not studied anymore. You have to look at studies outside the United States to get it. For those of you who don't know what I mean by differentiation, it's where we change work for the student individually in the classroom, which until AI was very hard to do. I will admit AI does make it a little easier. And then tracking was where we would have leveled classes where people of the same level were in the same classroom. The theory, and there was some good theory about ending tracking, was that if you have people of different levels together, the higher end would bring each other up. That is true if there's more higher end than lower end. But if there's not, you will divert to the mean. Boom. So differentiation was a way to try to handle this. This put the onus on the teacher and not the structure of the classroom. But this happened at the same time period where we were increasing teaching loads and standardizing curriculum. So the teachers were being given two completely opposed directives: to standardize their curriculum and to differentiate it more simultaneously, and to make it more available for the public to see. This has been a more recent 5-year push, but also differentiate it more, not just now for skills and IEPs and special needs, but also for parents' requests for morality and whatever else. Tracking is honors and AP courses, except you can't test for them anymore. The reason why I don't support tracking is in most states, the honors classes in most states, they're opt-in.
When you say direct instruction, can you explain that a little bit more for the viewing?
Direct instruction means lectures. It means modeling. It does not mean just lectures. It means modeling behaviors. It means the teacher teaching something. It does not necessarily mean the teacher talking at you for 40 minutes. In fact, that's a bad idea. But direct instruction means we don't expect the kids to know what we haven't taught them yet. And the way that that's traditionally scaffolded, if you think about the way you build a class, there's you front load direct instruction, then you and by that I do mean lecturing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then you move to modeling, and then you do practice, and then you refine. So if you think about this in the course of like how you learn without school, what you would ideally do, you'd watch your parents' mimesis. You do what your parents did. Mm-hmm. The parents would give you feedback. Mm-hmm. You do it again and change accordingly. Mm-hmm. That's how kids learn. That's how kids learn from like before they can talk. That's how most kids learn to talk. All right. All that Google Gaga nonsense is to encourage them to vocalize, to then feed back to what is possible for them. And as they get older and develop the gross and fine motor skills, you start speaking to them normally so that they model what you do, and you correct them when they don't. Those of you who've been parents know this, mm-hmm. even though you don't think about this in terms of all other skills. But if you've been a coach or done anything physical, I mean, I teach literature, but I also have helped people do weightlifting coaching. The process is similar. For some reason, in the 1980s, we started trying to think that, and honestly, it was born out of left-wing pedagogy. And it came largely at first through Paulo Freire and liberation pedagogy, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. It's a book I like, actually. But it was, and then progressive pedagogy from John Dewey. But the problem that you had with that is increasingly, instead of empowering the students to bring what they already know to the table and then teaching them what they don't know, teachers were basically being told to have them figure it out themselves and good luck. And your very smartest kids can do that, but good luck on that if you have other intellectual, our social economic, our demographic hindrances. You just that in fact, those things add to your cognitive load. One of the wildest things I learned when people were telling me about IQ being genetic, for example, back in those days, there are heritable elements of IQ. Yes, the IQ test is culturally biased and thus racist. I'm not here to argue that. I accept that, but it does actually measure a certain kind of abstract intelligence if you speak the standard language and you know what the standard language is. But here's a wild thing. I can give a kid a test in the standard language in their country, move them to a country where there's less socioeconomic strain, and you will see what we often called the Flynn effect in an individual child. So what the Flynn effect was, and it no longer exists, by the way, as a general, is every generation you would see about a standard deviation up on the IQ test. That stopped around 1980.
80?
Yeah.
Jesus.
We thought it went to 2000, but recent reviews of the studies actually indicated it stopped for around 1980. However, if I take you out of a war-torn or very poor country and put you into a rich one, and you live there and learn the language and take the test in the language, there's a lot of caveats to this, you'll see the same rise in IQ.
Okay.
So, like, IQ is not static. Oh, you feel like there's a really critical age grade for students learning literacy? Yes. The reason why we test it 4th, 8th, and 12th grade is not just because they're even numbers. 4th grade literacy is going to be usually pretty low, around 30-40%. But they actually do make like prison projections off that number for real. But there's a window, particularly for boys. This is what I was talking about with the overscaffolding, of about 4 years in either direction.
Mm.
But it becomes harder and harder to teach literacy once you get over the age of like between 12 and 14.
Because you figured it all out and you're kind of a douchebag.
Yeah, and you have less and less. I mean, yeah, you figured it all out and you're kind of a douchebag. That's the like attitudinal manifestation of that. But neurologically, you do still have brain plasticity. That's a big word for new neural pathways can up and close. But it becomes reduced and it's harder to engage with. So it's just harder to force people basically to open up new neural pathways, but between as they approach adulthood. And by the time they're 25, it's possible, but it's very hard.
It is very hard.
And by the time you're 45, it's almost impossible because your amygdala is literally beginning to die. It dies before the rest of your brain does.
Cases like Alicia Ortiz, they show students graduating, and she graduated with honors without basic reading skills. Do you think tools like speech to text and AI are masking structural failures?
Absolutely.
Or do these technologies support learning? Go ahead.
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
AI, you have to know how to use to support learning. The MIT studies on this actually indicate that if you use it rotely, you just put in prompts to spit things out, it actually will slow your ability not just to learn the thing you're supposed to be learning, but all things in general. If you have to prompt it and interact with it to get answers, it can speed up certain kinds of learning in certain directions because learning is social, and what you're basically using it for is a proxy for social interaction.
So language learning, for example, I want to learn Spanish. I can interact with an AI and it can speak back to me, tell me how to pronounce the word properly. And I can,
or if I'm trying to improve my writing and I ask the AI like to give me multiple suggestions and then I go and write that myself, that can help you.
It's your own editor.
Right. But if you just spit in and spit it out, which is going to be your automatic temptation because it can do that, that's going to degrade your abilities. So I think on average, there's a bunch of problems with AI. One is it flatters its learner and avoids cognitive dissonance to the point that it can induce psychosis. Now,
Yeah.
you could probably train it to not do that, but they don't. Now, I also would say if you were to learn like Spanish from an AI, you're going to learn very stilted Spanish, like what I did when I tried to learn Spanish from Duolingo when I was getting ready to go to Mexico and just trying to remember all my Spanish from high school. And congrejo bebe leche, the most useless phrase that I said over and over again on Duolingo. For those of you who don't know what that means, the crab drinks milk. Like, what the fuck?
You didn't know that? Milk drinking ass crab. How should educators approach tech tools then without letting them become substitutes for actual instruction?
I don't really have a good answer to you because people are like, oh, you can't do this in the finals. The finals are on a computer, my friend. And until we banned cell phones in most schools, which we needed a state level thing to do, otherwise it was your parents that complained more than the students did. I swear to you. I know that's counterintuitive, but it was true. We could not for sure keep them off their damn phones. I had up to 50 kids in a classroom in person. Is there a way that I can monitor each one individually to keep them off their phones? I took up phones all the time, and then I had parents come and get in my face over it.
Yeah. Do you think there's been a pivot in the way parents interact with things like, for example, phones, right? I feel confident that you and I, and this isn't to say one era is better than the other. You and I went to school in a time where if we got in trouble and your parent came to the school, generally you were probably going to get in trouble. Your parent was going to sit there and listen to what the teacher said and then going to go home and say, you told me all this shit and the teacher said blah, blah, blah. Now I hear more and more teachers say, God, I hate dealing with these parents. I hate when we take a kid's phone away. The parent comes to school and wants to fight you over the phone, wants to fight you over disciplining their kid. What is that change, or is there a change?
There's been a change. I've taught for 19 years.
Okay.
People I've also talked about use Google to check the students thing. I'm going to give you my class numbers as of today. I have 290 students online. There's a writing example a week. I do check their Google histories when they'll let me, because they're not in front of me, which means until then I have to deal with their parents writing my school because I'm letting a zero stick until they show me their Google history. Now, so yeah, I'm aware of the tricks. Also, it's not 100% even them, because they've gotten smarter about how they'll generate back Google history. They'll copy and paste it in sequences. I don't know why they spend this much time learning to cheat. But there is a problem with discipline. There's two issues. Administrators are punished for discipline records, so they have every incentive to adopt reparative justice discipline. I actually believe in reparative justice discipline because if it's done right, it's actually harsher. Mm-hmm. But it can't be done right without massive administrative overhead. So what it becomes is just apologize to your teacher and go back to the classroom. In states like California, there have even been laws that make it illegal to remove a disruptive student from the classroom because that is violating their rights to education. Now, this is one of the few times where my reactionary state actually did something good because they wanted to spite California. They passed a law that made it where we could kick kids out of the classroom if they were disrupted, just to spite Californians, which is funny. But I don't want to just remove kids all the time. That's not my goal. My goal is to teach them. But if I have a kid who's having a meltdown, I mean, middle school teachers regularly get assaulted. It's one of the reasons why I moved out of the middle school. Because I will only take a kid hitting me so many times.
That's insane, because you can't hit them back and you can't even hold them off, right? There's not anymore. Rules. You used to be able to, there used to be like a hold you could do to restrain them. That wasn't a chokehold, not even close to a chokehold. I was like, almost like a bear hug.
But I did a bear hug hold, and and a lift. For those of you who don't know, I am trained on restraining students. I don't do it anymore because I live in a state that has a different restraint policy, and I don't want to do it. So, but I don't see as many fights as I did in the 80s and 90s and aughts. When I was a teacher in the aughts, I had to break up a fight every 3 days. I haven't had to break up a fight, and even in person. I think I was in person for like 6 years, but only having to break up one fight. But I can't break up fights. This is the crazy thing about my state. I mean, this is just a little thing. You guys do know I live in Utah, so I'll tell you this. I can carry a gun on campus as a teacher, but I cannot break up a fight. True facts.
So what happens, another thing that's very popular right now is, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, is, kids have phones in classrooms. So kids record each other behaving badly. It makes me want to ask the question, would some of these incidents happen if people didn't know they were constantly on camera performing? I mean, kids are going to act out anyway. But some of the acting out I see, it feels like it's going to another level.
It's hard for me to say. I've seen. So I'm going to tell you my trends on discipline.
Okay.
It was a lot rougher when I started teaching in the late aughts. It really was. As far as discipline goes, like there were fights a lot. I had to deal with gang stuff. Bullying was still pretty bad. During the course of the aught teens, the first 6 years, I can't speak to it because I was out of the country. But when I came back, the kids were pretty nice to each other. They were really talkative. They didn't have a good sense of what was appropriate and not appropriate to say to a teacher, and they had no sense of privacy. And I do think you can blame that on social media. But they were not combative. COVID happened. The first 2 years after COVID, now I was going in and out of classrooms at this point. When I would go into the classrooms, they were just staring blankly. Just like they were shell-shocked. And then about 2022, we started seeing acting out like we had never seen before. One of the schools near where my offices are, like someone went in and just took all the toilet stalls out. The student took all the toilet stalls out, got him out of the school and onto the front lawn, and then broke off 2 sinks.
Was this a giant child?
No. In fact, even though there's cameras everywhere, somehow we couldn't identify the kid. I just want to point that out. So you talk about literacy. You're dealing in a situation where I think in a lot of ways it's easy to go into like, oh, the schools are crazy panic. There are some crazy stuff going on with kids right now. Some of it has to do with the fact that, like, for example, if we have kids on Chromebooks, which they now by state mandate, all of them have Chromebooks like all the time. They go and check them out at the beginning of the school year because everything's on the Chromebook because that's how they access these materials. And parents will come and say, block YouTube because we don't want to monitor YouTube ourselves. And I'm like, but it's your kid in your house. Like, so you want me to be Big Brother. So we do. Like, that's what we do. And I mean, we already monitor it for stuff like porn and stuff like that, but like, we've blocked YouTube. And it's not about but yeah, they were watching it in school, but we could have it where it's turned on, where it goes off in the building and comes back on at home. We don't. We've been asked not to by the parents. The parents expect us to enculturate their children. They basically see us as an extension of themselves, but you can see why this is a problem, and it would be a problem for literacy too. For example, I sit on the book approval board, aka the censorship board. All right. When everyone hears about banned books, it's people like me who ban them.
Wow, what a dick.
Yeah, sorry. When a parent complains about a book, it goes to a different board. But when a teacher wants to teach a book, that we get a council of like 6 parents and like 7 senior teachers in the district, and we sit and we look at the law and we read the book and we make a decision about if we'll teach it and what level we'll teach it at. The issue that we have is we have both conservative and liberal parents to appease. I don't have that many.
What books do they want banned? I mean, I hate to sound like a jerk, but
everything.
Anything that
mentions sex at all by any implication.
Are you suffering with some of this religious kind of fuckery that we see where people are going, in my child's library, can you believe they have this? And it's like, when is your kid going to the library, man? Your kid can't fucking read. That's what we're doing the show. So shut up about your dumb kid.
Yeah, no, there's that. It's not as bad as in Oklahoma, where like you have now universities kowtowing to the most ignorant shit ever. But yes, in general, it is Utah.
But are books the danger? I hate to sound like a jerk. It's like, look, man, no kid is reading anarchist cookbook because you can find a TikTok video of what's inside of there way easier, and it's 2 minutes long.
And it's actually going to be more accurate. So
I'm sorry, it just sounds so frustrating that someone comes to you and is like, this book is a problem.
When people go, Utah's going to Utah, this is like every red state in the country. It's different what they go after depending on the state, I will admit, but the worst is Florida. It's not Utah. And then Oklahoma. And then Nevada. So I say all this to tell you guys, we have trouble picking texts that are going to satisfy all the different cultural stakeholders. So we do lit circles a lot. So we don't ban that many books, right? But we remove them from general whole class instruction. And on top of that, there's a law in most conservative states, and even some liberal ones, that parents can opt their kids out of any lesson for any reason anyway. So every now and then, we just have to come up with an alternate assignment for the kid on the fly for reasons that we might not even know. It could be religious. Like I had a kid that won't study mythology because they are a certain. I have to be very careful because I don't want to out any children. A certain demographic group, and they're a certain religion. It is a kind of modern form of Christianity. I'll just give you that. Mm-hmm. Or, we won't teach certain text because a parent complained that we taught Catholics were Christian. That happened at a school I was at in Georgia. And yet we're supposed to teach a Bible class. So what happens is more and more of these classes either don't get taught or they're taught watered down. But again, that's not even, that's just long text. It's a problem getting long text through. But let's be honest about this. There's 3 other issues at hand. 1, we have favored teaching to standardized tests for a long time. 2, even when we stopped, we used the same materials. Mm-hmm. So we're not like all this complaining about, we're doing everything for standardized tests today. No, we're not. Most states aren't. There's still a few states that are because they have state level standardized tests, but the federal government hasn't really been enforcing its laws since Obama. And they're definitely not now. So I tell you all this to say the cultural stuff is hard to deal with. But on top of that, we teach shorter text. We talk about stuff like learning styles. So we'll talk about visual literacy as a way to learn reading when, your visual literacy for reading is to read it. You use your eyes. Unless you're blind and you use Braille. So, right? So you had all these fads and then you throw into that technology that has been shown, I'm going to hold this book proves it, to have no effect or a negative effect. A lot of it has no effect whatsoever. Some of it actually does damage. But we do it anyway. Okay? You're right about the neoliberalization of education. It's also, we have an administrative drift that's insane. People know about it in colleges, but they don't really know the extent of it in high school and in elementary school. And it's not that we have more principals and vice principals or assistant principals. That's not it, though. For every principal, there's like 5 under deputies, our cabinet assistants, our special consultants at the board office for anything you do, who are developing training so that the school doesn't get sued. So more and more resources go to that. The dwindling pounds of the pie go to a lot of tech because there's a lot of push from outside, not just from conservative ones either, to integrate tech into the school system to teach people how to adjust to the market. Now, that's the language that they use.
MIT study shows teachers often get less than 3 hours of training for literacy screenings. What does that say about how policy is implemented at the ground level?
It's terrible. I am trained on WIDA, which is a federally mandated literacy screening for those who are identified to not speak English at home.
Okay.
I am trained to do it manually. Like, I was trained abroad to do it manually 10 years ago. I am very good at it. However, I attend every year a 2-hour training, which enables me to administer a completely computerized test. And I just have the advantage of having been trained the old-fashioned way to know what I'm doing. The computerized test, however, gives me less oversight into what they're doing and how they're doing it, but it enables us, instead of having to go in and test each student one-on-one, which took the course of a whole year to go through all your students, to do 20 and 30 at a time. Are teachers even capable of addressing the problem? No. I understand the overdetermined nature of the problem. There are multiple things causing literacy decline at once. There are some simple helps. We can go back to teaching phonics. We moved to teaching sight words because phonics is not 100% foolproof, but what we replaced it with has a bigger hole in it, because phonics, it's like when you learn that quantum physics means Newtonian physics isn't true and you decide to not ever teach Newtonian physics again, and now all of a sudden people don't understand how gravity works.
Well, what would real training and support look like if we were serious about improving reading outcomes, in your opinion?
We would teach less deeper. So we would teach both extensive and intensive reading. There would be sections of it that would have no technology and sections of it that would have technology. I'm not a Luddite. I do think you have to expose kids to tech. But there'd be times where you'd have to go into a room and we're reading in an old-fashioned book for an hour together. All right. So yeah. So I'm gonna, what would we do? We would also have to offer family supports, quit using the school system as the only point of contact for child welfare. We would probably need to increase social trust in allo parents, not just so the school can function, but that you can trust other adults around your kids. I understand why people don't trust other adults around their kids. But I can tell you that the one not stupid thing that ever came out of Hillary Clinton's mouth that I can back up anthropologically is it really does take a village to raise kids, which is why parents go crazy in ways they didn't used to, because everyone else in a small group was basically an allo parent. That's an anthropological word for for a quasi parent in the community, and now the only people are people who are hired to be. I'm an allo parent, and it's weird.
An albino parent?
An allo parent. But yes, I am also an albino parent. Sure, I'm pretty pale.
Are AI reading platforms a genuine educational innovation? Is it the next step in dismantling public education, or can it be seen as a real tool in helping? Is that a loaded
They
question?
are going to attempt to dismantle education with it, just like they did with MOOCs.
I'm sorry?
The problem is it doesn't serve the housing of children so both parents can work, which is vitally necessary for the current economy to function, particularly as there's less and less adults. By the way, we have two big bottlenecks of adults, and then we're going to have a real small population size for a while. Unless you have immigration. Because the biggest bottleneck of adults are dying. That's the baby boomers. Gen X doesn't matter. Sorry, guys. We don't. I'm a Zennial, so I'm going to betray my people in a second. Millennials are the children of Zoomers, so there's a fair amount of them, and there's a lot of immigrants. But when you restrict immigration and you have very low birth rates, like Zoomers, I mean, Zoomers are nihilistic, but they're kind of right. There's not enough of them to really do much. Not until the millennials are gone. And it's going to be a while. Although millennials are probably going to die younger than boomers. Had to tell you. But if current stats persist the way they are, then shave about 10 years off of everybody's life.
Is big tech positioning itself and AI as a cheaper, more efficient alternative to teachers? And if so, is the smart school, smart city project going to become more real as these stories of the Alicia Ortizes become maybe more common?
I think what you are going to see is poor kids are going to get more tech thrown at them.
More tech thrown at them, you said?
Yeah. I know that seems counterintuitive because you think tech's expensive, but that's actually been the trend for about 25 years now. Elite schools are increasingly analog. They have computer classes, they have programming classes, they have robotics classes, but you know what they don't have is your English class being entirely on a Chromebook. What you will see is this will be served as a way to get teachers down, but they're not going to be able to get rid of the AI. Cannot babysit, not really. So what's probably going to happen is you're going to have teachers checking these chatbots with larger and larger class sizes. Someone was shocked when I said I have 50 kids in a class. I've had up to 50 kids in a class.
Is that the online class or in person?
No, I'm talking physically. I have over 100 kids in a class online. I have over 200 kids right now.
It sounds like a lecture in college, and this is just a regular English class that you teach.
Right. But the truancy, even before truancy got bad, was 25%. I didn't even have desks for every kid, Jason.
So kids had to sit on the floor.
Well, they never had to sit on the floor because they never all showed up.
Gotcha.
But on record, I had 50 kids. All right. When I started teaching, I was shocked that I had 35 kids. As I moved further west and we moved further away from the aughts, the numbers have gone up and up and up. Furthermore, now this is in high school. I don't know many elementary school classrooms that have more than 30. But again, that's a lot when you're talking about little kids. Highly personalized
that
learning.
Sounds like a nightmare if you're talking about little kids, man.
Right.
It's a lot of bathroom breaks.
Yeah, you got to do a lot. But what I enable the district to do now as an online teacher is, even though I will go and I meet with these kids personally in person often, but don't think I'm not just sitting at my desk all day. But I have 300 kids. That's 100 more than the max capacity of And that's with personalized services. If you remove the personalized services, and you don't have someone contacting parents and going and doing building visits. I don't visit homes, but doing phone call check-ins and stuff like that. Being available in an office in the school district where the kids can easily get to, even by bus. If you didn't have that, your class cap is like 700-800, maybe 1,000. Some districts do. I go to the DLAC conference, which is a digital learning conference, and the size gets astronomically high. Truancy is figured into how big class administrations make class sizes now. Absolutely. And the truancy rate is about 30%.
Damn, that's pretty. So what's your graduation rate? You said they've been improving.
90. Figure that out.
Oh.
We are having 90% graduation rates with 30% truancy rates.
Say no more.
Because we have things like packets and for example, my district has several different several different levels of online instruction. I am the full school instruction. So there's live teaching sessions on Zoom. There's in-person ability if you need help. I will call your parents. We unlock it week for week, although you can make anything up in the past as long as you want to, which is its own problem, but we do that. There's a second program beyond that is completely asynchronous. You do it on your own and you either pass or fail it. And there's a teacher monitoring your grades, but that's all they're doing. And they have way more students than me. And I've already told you I have 300. Mm-hmm. But you get that when you fail out of us. And then there's a packet system. Now, most states don't have this, where you can go and do a physical packet and just take a test to opt out of the class. And the packet is sometimes ridiculously easy. There's actually been a scandal that even in our Republican legislature where they were like, we got to make the packets tougher. We have to have oversight on this because kids are graduating, not able to even read at a 5th grade level.
Or graduating with honors and not even be able to read at all.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what I'm more shocked about with that story, that she graduated with honors. And I left this out in the introduction. She moved from Puerto Rico to Connecticut. And when she moved, they tested her in elementary school and they said, you have ADHD and dyslexia. So she was for a while in special education.
Yeah, but I graduated. Like okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm dyslexic and aphasic. When I say that online, I'm not joking. Mm-hmm. I've been my whole life. My aphasia gets worse when I'm mad. Jason, see me type when I'm mad. There's like every other word missing.
I can figure it out.
But it's like Mad Libs. It's like, but what you get with special ed, you can get accommodations from SPED, and I think those are mostly legitimate. SPED is hard to get because there's federal laws limiting how we can put people in it. Gotcha. Actually, because the history of using special ed to get Black students in the South to not take tests. That was really big in the 70s and 80s. So like 70% of Black students were diagnosed with special ed. Now, to be fair, a lot of them couldn't read because they were generationally kept from reading. So they were coming from a generational deficit,
yes,
of skills. So they probably did look pretty low. But they made that illegal in the 90s, and with a revision of a law called IDEA, or it was maybe the aughts, but it's before NCLB. And so there are limits on how people can be pushed into SPED. However, ADA created a category called the 504, which is something I really believe in for students who need it. But the problem with it is we're not allowed to question why a doctor suggests that you have one. And one of the things that started about 15 years ago was middle-class parents realizing they can get almost any exception they wanted by going and buying a 504 from a doctor. So if you go to well-off schools, believe it or not, you are more likely to have a class with 30, 40, 50% accommodations. Now, I believe in these accommodations, but there are a lot of liberals who and even far leftists who get really mad when I point out you can buy them. All right. There's no oversight on the doctors. And I don't know how we would either. I am not credentialed enough to question a doctor's judgment. But when you have, I've had classes where 60% of the class has accommodations. That's technically not even supposed to be legal. So by legal, they're supposed to spread the students out, but they couldn't. There was no class that they could move them to get the proportions back down. So I've even pointed out, and Jean Bajelon and I have talked about this, that even elite schools in America are a lot less elite than they used to be because parents have figured out how to play the exceptions game. And if it's a Nepo system, it doesn't matter. But if you wonder why your elites are fucking stupid, I'm not talking about the literate people. We're not even talking about the
ones in
average person.
Right now. We're not talking about the ones in office right now that actually went to elite institutions as well.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you can get into it. There's a scandal about 10 years ago about this, people buying 504s to get special treatment to go into a room where they had paid off a teacher to enable them to cheat because there was less oversight in the accommodations room. And this was a massive scandal 10 years ago. And I thought it was going to lead to 504 reform. It did the opposite. You know what they did? They got rid of the standardized tests at a lot of elite universities, except for the very elite ones, which has made them even less economically diverse. And I know people have gotten mad at me for pointing out that DEI was used for this too, but it was. I know that it was used for other things. I know that even helped white kids because like veteran status was part of DEI stuff. For those of you who don't know, there's all kinds of ways that people play DEI. But the one thing that I could say for a fact in aggregate is during that time period, the economic diversity of all demographics of all students declined. So it wasn't just that white students got less economically diverse, although it became that like most white students are actually legacy admissions at this point. It was also that all students of color became less economically diverse, which tends rich. So, and this entire demographic, like, to go back to what this has to do with literacy in high school, the colleges know that, for example, we have changed the grading system for, like, there are schools in my district that give out 6 or 7 my brain is forgetting what it's called in high school. I'm remembering what it's called in college. Salutatorians and other one.
Valedictorians.
Valedictorians, thank you. I was saying cum laude, and I was like, wait, no, that's college. Get that out of your head. Valedictorians. This is my aphasia. They'll have 6 or 7 of them. All right. And there's been the story that you're talking about because we've changed the way we grade. So we have 6 or 7 of them, and sometimes they're not literate, or they get in, they get a full ride scholarship, and they fail out. Now that's always happened because the cultural difference between college and high school is what it is. High school rewards compliance in a lot of ways that college used to not. Actually, it kind of does now, but there's not a lot for that. And you want to get even really more dismal about in 2015. There's a study called Academically Adrift that actually indicated that you don't learn that much in college until grad school. So like now it's becoming, unless you get to grad school, you might as well just have been a high school graduate like 20 years ago. Now, I do not know if we have illiterate valedictorians, but they're not advanced. Many of them have never read a novel. They figure out their way around all of it. Their math skills are mediocre because we're also not checking no one cares about the standardized, well, not no one, but fewer and fewer schools care about the standardized test anymore. So we have no way to check the grades against anything.
Was Common Core a bit of a failure there? Because you don't do that anymore, right? That's done.
Okay, so we don't do that here in Utah, but we just plagiarized it and changed a few words. But I'll tell you what Common Core did. In math, it added tons of standards that are very hard to get through with 50 different ways to teach them that are not the way the people who are teaching them were taught to teach. I'm not saying algorithmic math works. It actually, there's good indication that it doesn't. The United States has been bad at teaching math for as long as I've been alive. And by the way, Jason, that's where we're really bad. So our literacy is in the lower center of the OECD rankings. So, we're bad to be as rich as we are, but we're actually not that bad on reading compared to some other countries, which is terrifying because this is indicated it's a worldwide problem. But our numeracy is about the worst in the OECD. We don't know how to do math. So yeah, when you say I took to be a valedictorian, you had to take AP classes. They removed the weighting for a lot of that in most districts. Honors classes removed testing in and out. There were districts. I used to work in a district in Georgia. This was 10 years ago. That literally made every single one of its classes AP at a high impoverished school. But then only 1% of the people took the AP test. Figure it out. I say this because I think teachers are doing their damnedest right now, but they're burning out like crazy. Parents, I'm sympathetic to the parents. They're confused, they're overworked, they're overstimulated themselves, and they didn't go through a functional school system either. I mean, it's not like the 90s was a heyday for stuff. Go back and look at the stats.
Hey, we had gifted and talented education.
We did, and if you were smarter or really talented, it was easier to even succeed at public school. I am proof of that. But I went to a middle tier suburban school right outside of an urban area that was 50% black, or 40% black when I was there. It's 50% black now. That had like 3 concurrent and 3 dual enrollment. We didn't even have concurrent enrollment yet, and 3 AP classes, right? But I was able to use that in honors, which you had the test in, and gifted and talented and all that, to get up as a poor student with a special ed diagnosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could do it. You had to learn how to play the game. I remember when I was in 10th grade, the game just cut on to me. Like I don't know what happened. I just realized it's a game. I can win this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how my kids would do that now, because when you have people who graduate with honors who fell out, you know what the universities do? They don't say they do it, but they do. They start looking at your zip code and they care about your money, because they'll take the money to make up the difference in not being able to tell who can pass and who can't.
There was a comment in the chat that I think is one that should be addressed, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. And a friend of mine who actually no longer works in education, but he worked in education for some time, someone we know, Bert Cooper, and we were talking about pay. And there's this thing that you always hear people say: if you pay so and such money, then more people will want to do job X. And that's not true, right?
It's not true.
We know that prestige means a lot when it comes to pay. I actually know someone quite close to me, and I know this sounds like an anecdotal lie, but it's not, who has the potential to get a supervisory position at her job, which would give her an increase of close to 6 figures, and she doesn't want it. It's not like she doesn't need it. She's like, I don't want it because it comes with a certain amount of, I don't want to say responsibility, but it comes with a certain amount of responsibility where you have to interact with angry parents and angry school officials, and
Yep.
it's not going to be worth the $100,000 bump. So as long as being a teacher is constantly seen as a war against incorrigible youth, good luck finding people that want to do it, because here's the reality. It pays a lot more than a lot of jobs out there, and people don't want to do it for a very good reason, because no one wants to deal with your children.
Right. So I make around the median income for a household myself. All right. Now I make more than that because I have a podcast and it's actually kind of profitable, but I'd be dead center middle class. Now I could not survive in my city, ironically, at dead center middle class. That's a whole different discussion. But on paper, dead center middle class, right? Median. Now, that was recent. That took all the red state revolts, because teachers in Utah made like $35,000 is recent, starting as recently as 2015. But now the average starting is about 60. It's not money, it's treatment. It's prestige, but it's also treatment. I don't actually get treated that poorly by the kids. I hear horror stories, but I don't have that problem. One of it is I'm not a middle class wafy person, but that's increasingly, teaching is becoming like journalism. Is who takes the job.
Thank you.
Someone who is married well and wants and has an idealistic notion of why they're doing it. And by the way, that's also why they quit after 5 years. If you have to do this job to survive, you don't just leave it. I will probably die some form of teacher. Even if my podcast went super, super big. I mean, if I made millions from it, I might quit. But like, that's like,
I feel you.
But I'm not gonna. I'm not retiring to silver like at 40. I'm already 45. So, it's the kids are rough sometimes. They are, and you see shit that you don't expect to see. You do.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I work 60, 70 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. My
spouse is worried that I'm going to die young because I'm a workaholic, because I'm not just doing that. I'm also writing books and just, but I'm my base level. I start, I go outside and like hang out with people 3 times a week. That's it. Because everything else is union, school, podcast, union, school.
Mm-hmm.
I do this because I love it. This is not motivated about money. If I was motivated about money, I would have stayed working for Geico. Because I made more adjusting for inflation when I did that job in 2005 than I do now. You're right.
It's a demanding position that just doesn't have a certain amount of prestige. It doesn't have a certain amount of cultural cachet. It's a job that when you say you have it, people kind of look at you like
they
you're
look
a
at you like
wounded
you're a
veteran.
fucking charity case.
Yeah.
It makes me mad, actually. They're like, oh well, you're poor.
Right,
Like,
there's industries that people work in. If you teach and you make your way up through the educational bureaucracy and you get to, like, let's say the superintendent position, that's a big time position.
Yeah.
But again, would you want it because of what it comes with? And there's a reason why the people that have it tend to suck as individuals.
Oh, you either have to be.
You're kind of a politician.
Yeah, you're a politician, and you have to be either, like, I've worked for good supers and bad supers.
Mm-hmm.
Good supers are politicians, and they have the what I like to call the love and fear approach. Like, we all love them, but we also know that they'll stab you in the back and the front and the side if you like make problems for them. And I actually like working for those people. It's the people who are just like either robots or they just start with the stabbing that I like to work for. And look, I'm a union guy. I'm like a rep in the teachers union. So like I often am at odds with administration. But they have a hard job that I don't want. People ask me if I would go in administration because like you'd be good at it. And I'm about at the career point where there's no place to, this is another problem with teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Is you are really good at it, there really isn't a place for you to go. It is kind of a weirdly decent paying dead-end job. Right? If you look at it.
Yeah. Is that why people look at it? Because also too, do you feel that that the profession itself, because of a myriad of factors, one of them housing costs being so high? Like, let's take a city like anywhere in the Silicon Valley where teachers are making 50, 60, 70, let's say you make $80,000 a year, you probably can't afford to buy a house. So teachers, once entrenched in the actual community, you'd see your teacher at the grocery store, right? They talk to your parents. Maybe that happens to you where you live, but depending on where you live,
it doesn't happen to me. I like my kids only see me on campus. Like,
you make sure you like fuck them kids.
Well, I mean, you know,
like when
I was a comedian,
shopping in Provo, I don't want to see you, motherfucker.
Well, I also live in a major metropolitan area, right? But like put it to you this way: I live in the same county as my students, but I'm in a different school district where I live than where I teach, and that's despite the fact I live in the same county and I live relatively close. I live 10 minutes away from my school, right? But you have to think about the orders of magnitude of size in some of these urban and suburban districts, like just the number of kids you're dealing with. There's like 8 or 9 high schools in my district. But like our graduation class sizes are like 700-800. Like, you know,
someone wants to know, Derek, what do you think of the great results of education had on your government and their sometimes not sharp moments and ability to pay attention through time?
Oh, are you asking me like why people can't? I'm a little confused by the question.
Maybe they had some typos. It happens.
I mean, that's okay. I have typos all the time. I don't get that.
This is a non-judgment typo zone. That this shit happens. Nobody, if anyone's mad at you for that, they're shitty person.
It's not me. I'll yell at you for all kinds of shit, but typos is not one.
Typos, you can't yell at somebody for a fuck. I have no idea what device you're doing this on. I can't get mad at you.
Oh, Governor Cox's wife is a teacher, and not great. I mean, the teachers union was sure that because of that Cox would not go with the Republican plan to try to remove our ability to collect bargain, and they were wrong. Were they wrong? So I don't know if Cox was a teacher, but his wife is a teacher. And no, I mean, we don't have the most stellar education. The thing is, we don't have, like, we still show up in the middle pack, but I don't know, when we compare states, I don't even know what we're comparing anymore. Because, like, we don't do the same tests. Like even the standardized tests aren't that standardized. If we're comparing graduation rates, I've already told you, you can juke all that. You can have, review after review after review. In certain states, including mine, you pretty much can't fail a middle school student. Now, I'm not saying we need to fail kids, but we have to account for it somewhere.
Summer school, no?
Yeah, summer school or remediation the next year, but just passing them up again, you just get compounding gaps until they hit high school where there is accountability.
Can I ask a question in closing?
Yeah.
Now that we're having all of these massively unfortunate ICE raids, and I do think Trump is going to, and Kristi Noem are going to face their little bighorn in New Orleans. I don't know if you've seen the scene of a young white girl running from ICE agents who were trying to arrest her, because New Orleans is somewhere it's like, have fun trying to figure out what these people are. You're going to be arresting a lot of Therese and Varns, and that's not going to go well. But in seriousness, parents are afraid to go to school. Kids are terrified. School districts have to act like paramilitary organizations just to make sure kids can come in and out of a classroom. How is this going to affect us down the road? Has Trump kind of accidentally created another COVID?
Sorta. So I'm just gonna give you an example of that. Every Trump announcement, my enrollment online increases by 10%. Because the kids want the parents do want their parents to have they want their kids to have access or something, and they don't want to send them in school. And sometimes just a lot of immigrant parents, but it's also a lot of conservative parents who are also like, these schools are crazy, and they're not entirely wrong sometimes. I will tell you, the schools are relatively safe. The idea that there's like school shootings all the time is a myth. There are school shootings. There's way too many of them, but you're not likely. That is not the primary problem you're going to have in American school. But yeah, it's quite bad. And my point about it being a social problem is you have parents who are overstressed, communities that rightfully don't trust each other, kids who are dopamine addicted as early as age 5 or 6 because of exposure to deliberately designed addictive devices, desocialization at a scale that we're not. I mean, kids really are less likely to be social. I sometimes exaggerate how bad it is, but it is significant. Like, a lot of kids don't date or go to dances or have friend groups. There aren't subcultures in the same way. The kids all look alike, like in the way they dress, which you would think would be good, until you realize it means they're not socializing together enough to have a group identity to which to dress accordingly to. And when you start noticing that stuff, I've been saying literacy is a sign of a socialization problem as much as it is a sign of a pedagogical one. And that's a big way of saying the kids are in a world that does not incentivize believing that they have a future or trusting other people. So why do they care about reading? Because reading is partly about communicating different models of mind based on trusting the information that you're going to get from those models of mind. If that has failed, why the fuck does anyone care about reading anyway? That's a bigger social reproduction problem. And until you start looking at it like that, which no one wants to look at, well, maybe not no one, but very few. I'm not going to do the whole no one ever does thing. That's a dirty rhetorical trick. But very few people do want to look at it. People seem baffled when I say stuff like, this learning and literacy problem is a social problem as much as it is an educational one. It's tied into what we talk about with OnlyFans. It's tied into what we talk about with Patreon substitute for community. It's tied into what we talk about why politics aren't really politics anymore. They're subcultures. It's tied into the fact there aren't other subcultures but political and nerd fandom ones. What do you got? Your choices either are your identified politics or your consumer choices. That's what you have the bond over.
What happens when your politics are consumer choices?
I mean, they kind of are.
That's been my big, thing to think about constantly. Maybe we'll have an off-air conversation about this thing that I'm working on. A link to emo kids and Mondami. You'll love it.
All right. You guys in the chat, be nicer to each other. I see you. I'm watching you. I'm the only person yelling at people around here.
I don't know. I was doing a little finger scolding myself.
You were a finger. I just had to do the teacher thing, but it was
me this time.
It is your show. I'm just a guest. I should be scolding your audience.
Well, we're crossing the streams.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure some of my toxicity is over here too.
No, look, I think this has been a conversation that most people are very engaged in. I'm shocked at how many people are not admitting, but they're saying they're teachers that are watching the program. I love that. I think that's cool that teachers watch this show. It's something that we talk about in our private chat. It's something Derick and I talk about amongst each other, which is literacy among young people. Why don't they read? Is AI a helpful tool? Is it's not? I think we're looking for binary answers for a problem that there's a lot of different ways we can go with trying to right this ship, I guess.
Yeah. So someone asked me what they should do with their kids. I can't make that choice for you, man. There are downs. I'd say unschooling is only
the deschooling. What do you think about deschooling?
Oh God, I'm so torn in it. Like, one, the books that stuff is based off, that even like leftist anarchists like, are actually Cato Institute funded propaganda. But there are some truths to some things about schools that are kind of ugly. They are designed in the most part like prisons now. That does have an effect on the way people act. There's no way it doesn't. They're designed that way for a variety of reasons. It isn't just a school to prison pipeline issue. It's also a safety issue. It's a social trust issue. It's not there. It's an insurance issue. I mean, I haven't talked about how much insurance plays a role in all this. So when you ask me what you do with your kids, if you are super well educated, and one of the people talking, I happen to have taught them. I have a student in the chat.
No way.
Not from Utah, from like a long time ago.
Awesome.
Like I think I taught them. God, now it'd almost be 20 years ago. But what should they do with their kids? I don't know. I mean, I actually used to help people who homeschooled their kids, and I saw a lot of shenanigans with homeschooling. I don't think credentials are miracles. I mean, you can have a grad degree and be a moron. We've seen that plenty. But it is a thing. Do you have the ability to teach them what they would want to know at every level, and can you find it and incorporate it and do it yourself? At low levels, you probably can, but you have to be rigorous about it, and you have to really pay attention to your kids, and you kind of have to have the leisure to be with your kid a whole lot. And if you are able to do that, great. You'll probably progress your kid faster. But that's not a reality for a whole lot of people. And when I used to argue with libertarians, I'm like, I can tell you're upper middle class because you can't even imagine that other people cannot do this. There is no like family wage.
Anton wants you to define deschooling.
Deschooling is to deinstitutionalize learning and let the kids learn what they are naturally attracted to. Kind of a more radical version of what you try in Montessori school. It is
way more radical than Montessori, like frighteningly more radical.
Yeah, it's Ivan Illich. It's and if you are very well educated and very aware, it can work wonders. But I've also seen it lead to kids being illiterate and period, like almost child neglect level, because the parents don't know what they're doing. Free range learning is basically the same thing.
That's good. Yeah, I like that free range learning.
I have seen with homeschool kids, I've seen a range of education levels that's astonishing. But that makes sense because there's a range of people in the public. My own family used one of my brothers was able to use homeschooling to drop out 2 years before it was legal. So just, that also happens. So for those of you who don't know, I come from a problem lower middle class background, is the way that somebody might say it on a school special. And 2 of my brothers did not graduate. 2 of my brothers didn't finish middle school. One of them was able to go to college in their 30s and fixed all that. The other one is in and out of prison all the time. So, there you go. And then the other 2 of us have graduate degrees. Figure that out. I don't whatever. So an Irish family? Well, actually, part Irish, part Slavic, part Jewish, part North African. Figure that out. I don't know which ethnic slur you want to use, but there's plenty.
I'm sure we can create one.
Yeah.
It's not like you and I haven't done that before.
Anyway, on that note,
Derick,
I need to go.
Thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate you doing this on a Friday, and have a very good rest of your weekend. And I'll talk to you sooner than later. That was Derick Varn. As much as I would love to go into the champagne room with you guys, I was on the fence of doing a champagne room, and I was like, I can't do it because I did drive. It took me like almost 7 hours to get to LA yesterday, and then there was this whole incident with ants in my car, and I don't want to get into it. I will say that I won't even tell you what I said at the thing. Maybe I should. It's kind of funny. I was pretty exhausted by the end of the night, and the dude that threw the event went up to me and shook my hand and goes, "Hey, Jason, thank you so much for coming." And my only response I could say to him was, "Hey, thank you for coming." That's the only thing I could think to say to that man. And he kind of looked at me like, "Are you drunk or retarded? What's Yes, Shamu says ants in the car. Yes, there's ants in my car. Where I live is on a dirt road, and so sometimes there's an ant issue, and I didn't see it, but they had formed a colony in my car, and there were ants everywhere. And if you've ever crossed the border, there's certain times of the day it's better than others, and there's an app. There's a new app for border crossing. And you would think now, with all this immigration crackdown, they'd be so much better at the border crossing app. That app fucking lied to me. And it wasn't 80 minutes to cross the border. It was over 3 hours to cross the border. And about 2 hours in, I kept seeing ants, like a rogue ant. And I was like, I'm killing these rogue ants with my family. Where the fuck are these rogue ants coming from? What the fuck? And I looked in my passenger side door, and there's just this thick black streak of ants, and it's going in this line, and it's going under the floor mat. And I usually have poison in my car because I'm terrified of bugs, and I don't want ants in my car. And I don't have poison in my car anymore. I took it out. So I'm panicking that there's ants in my car. And Teray Reed called me to have a serious conversation with me. And I can't talk to him seriously because I'm stuck in traffic. People are trying to sell me things at the same time. So now I'm yelling at people trying to sell me stuff, which is really rude because they're extremely impoverished. And I don't have to be rude about it. But I'm trying to kill ants. And I'm yelling at, I'm like, dude, they've breached the perimeter. So the ants are going, they're trying to come over. And I'm like, no, as long as I can hold the ants at the middle console, if I can get through, I can get ant poison, I can solve this problem. So I'm trying to kill these. I finally get past the gate. So there's this gate you got to get past, and then you can kind of pick a line which you think is going to move the fastest. And I picked the worst fucking line to get in because it's a talkative, inquisitive border guard. Like, I'm freaking out about these ants. I watched a horror movie hell years ago where these people were getting killed by ants. And if you think about it, there's no way a bunch of ants can kill you. Would you just, oh no, like you just step on them, right? Like I still had enough time to get out of my car and spray poison and kill them all. Like there was no way they were going to overtake me. But that's what was going on in my head because I'm paranoid and I'm a little off. So I finally get up to the border, and now I'm looking, as the young people say, mad cokey, because I keep looking at the ants and I have to make sure they're not breaching the perimeter again because I have to kill them. And the scout ones are fast as shit. I don't know if it's Mexican ants are fast as shit. I don't know if this sounded racist. I'm not trying to be racist. I'm just saying. These ants were faster than I'm used to. And they're flying around. I'm trying to kill them. I'm trying to kill them as fast as I can. And the border guard lady's like, so where are you headed today? Los Angeles. What were you doing in Mexico for so long? Now, mind you, I haven't left for about 3 months. So usually they say that when I first moved here, I would get paranoid. I'd be like, vacation? Like, you vacation for 3 months? Let me see your trunk again. Open up that butthole. So I said, I live in Mexico. She goes, so what business do you have in Los Angeles? Are you from Los Angeles by any chance? I said, no, ma'am, I'm actually from way north in the Bay. And by me, I'm trying to make eye contact, and I'm looking at the ants the whole time because I'm terrified of these fucking ants. And she's like, oh, so are these people you're going to go see, your friends in Los Angeles? Are they from the Bay Area as well? I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, what's all the goddamn fucking questions? No. Well, how do you know these people? I know them from work. Oh, what do you do? And I was going to think of a fake job, but I couldn't think of a fake job. I could just say, oh, I'm a writer. And because sometimes they'll be like, oh, where can I find your stuff? And I can actually say, oh, you can find me here. You can find me here. And then I thought, oh, don't say you're a writer because they'll find your stuff and they'll see that you're writing these left magazines. And then they want to inspect your butthole. We're coming for you, nigga. I don't want that. I'm not trying to have the beehole inspection. And I'm also not trying to look all coked out because I keep like worrying that the ants are going to overtake me. And she's going to see the ants and be like, oh no, he's got ants in his car. That means he's got cocaine. Open his butthole. And I have a YouTube channel. And mind you, I was in a 3-hour line. So it's not like there aren't cars behind me. She gives not one fuck. As a matter of fact, I think she's getting gushy over the fact that all these people have to wait. She was the Eminem, because she was white, of border guards. Just woke up screaming, fuck the world. And I'm like, she goes, well, that's so interesting. What's your show called? And I'm like, I don't want to say. We've literally done a show with a border patrol officer to talk about the horrible things that happen to border patrol officers that are female. And again, I'm not trying to have a note, please see Jason Miles's Rectum for Drugs, because he has a leftist podcast, and the mandate that has been sent down from up high says beehole inspections on all chocolate leftists. And it looks like he never skips leg day. And I said the truth. I said, well, at 5 a.m. this morning, I had a musician friend come on and we talked about the economics of being in a band. And then she goes, oh my God, that sounds so interesting. I just want to leave at this point. Even the ants are getting frustrated. The ants are like, dude, fuck. What's her deal? And she goes, well, I would assume, most of the famous people, like, and now she wants to have a conversation about the economics of being in a band. I want to not be viewed as a person of interest for beehole inspections. And I have to ward off the assault of the ants. I have to massacre the ants. All I want to do is cross this imaginary line, get over the border, buy the largest industrial strength thing of poison I can find, and kill these ants. I want to kill the ants like Anakin killed the not the Jawas. What were they? Those people in Attack of the Clones, because that's how I was. So eventually she lets me through. And if you ever cross the border, there's just a series of speed bumps. I am flying over these speed bumps, but it's okay because living on the dirt road, my car has no suspension. So fuck my undercarriage. Tuscan Raiders, thank you. And I take the first exit. I see a liquor store. I walk in. I'm like, the liquor store is going to have Raid. And the liquor store had this fucking massive. The Raid that I got at Walmart wasn't as big as this thick ass can of Raid. And I go in there and I asked in Spanish, because when you cross the border, the first people that are going to help you generally are brown. And when you do that, they look at you like you're a fucking asshole. And I was like, oh, and I have ants in my car, dude. And I'm saying this in Spanish, and they just kind of look at me like that guy's high out of his mind. I must have looked insane. So I thought the ants had maybe came in from just being stuck in this 3-hour border wait. That wasn't the case. So I'm spraying the outside of my car. I don't see any ants. I open the passenger side door. I lift up the floor mat, and there is just this massive colony of ants. And they're starting to go to the back seat. I'm spraying everything. I'm killing the younglings and the women. I slaughtered so many ants. And then I didn't think about the almost 3.5-hour drive north I had in my car that I've now saturated with ant poison. I don't think that was a smart idea. And I think it might have made me a little loopy. It's definitely affected my throat negatively. We'll see if you don't see me on air next week. Maybe the poison won. Maybe the ants actually won. Maybe the ants had the last laugh. But in the end, I made some off-color jokes at the event. Met some people that watched the show. That's always cool. Someone thought it was Pascal's show, so that's always fun. Don't know you, but there's another guy on there. Yeah, Pascal, he's cool. Who are you? Never like that, but it happens. And when the gentleman that put on the event said, thank you for coming, And I hope you're watching this and you know that now you know why I looked you right in the eye and said, thank you for coming. I feel really bad that I said that. Because I tried to correct it. I was like, no, I'm happy for coming. That's not better to say, by the way. But that's what I did. And then I just sat down. I took my loss and I sat down. So never again. Never again will I saturate my passenger seat with ant poison. I'm happy for coming. The J. Miles story. Yes. True. That's all true. It is all true. Someone says, well, you've been winning so much. You got to balance yourself out, dude. Sean says, time for a new car. Well, Sean, my car is perfect cover for living here. It is extremely oxidized from the ocean air. It still runs like a fucking dream, being that I haven't changed the oil since the Biden administration. First term. First month. True story. True story. But you guys will be proud of me. There was a gentleman that, because everything's full service here, and this guy checked my oil and he goes, I think you might need an oil change. I was like, oh, people have been telling me that. Yeah. Just come back, dude. I'll just change it. Just come back. Bring the oil. I'll just change it. Just give me a tip. I'll just change it. So next week, inshallah, the oil will be changed. The once every 5-year oil change will happen. Drea says, liar. Red says, Jason's never getting rid of that Hyundai. He will be buried in it. It's a great car. It, sadly, it's kind of like the Millennium Falcon in that, where you look at it, you're like, this bucket of bolts will never get us to Alderaan. And yet, the bucket of bolts gets me all the way to the San Francisco Bay Area from Baja. You battle traffic in Southern California and get to the event in Mid-City and then drive back home like a dream. Thank you guys for hanging out with Varn and I. Thank you for listening to my horrible story. If there's ants in your car, don't saturate your passenger seat with poison and then drive in it. It's even with the windows down. It's not smart. Don't do it. And on that note, I will see you guys next week. Let's go out with the outro for Stefan and Quinn's. I like it so much. I'm jealous of it. And I asked Quinn for a new outro, and he's like, I'm so busy with school. I'm like, fuck your education, dude. Show needs an outro. I didn't say that. Peace, guys.
Start eating that trash can.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time.